Coming up on today's episode.
We try to be honest with people as far as they want, this, that, and the other. And I'll tell them outright, you're never going to see that money back. You're never going to see the benefits of this. You're never going to be like, oh, our electric bill is so much better because of these windows, because it's not reality.
This is the You Ask, the Pros Answer podcast. Do you have questions about an upcoming exterior contracting project? We've got answers. Welcome to the You Ask, the Pros Answer podcast. Hey, welcome to the You Ask, the Pros Answer podcast. Your questions answered by the pros you trust. My name is Cole. I am part of the marketing team at Pro Exteriors and joined, as always, by owner, president, founder, the man, Aaron Rodgers. Aaron, how are you?
I'm wonderful, Cole. How are you?
I am doing pretty well. I like our twinning hats today.
Always twinning.
Very exciting. All right, hey, if you are a regular audience member, you know this, but week after week, we try to tackle a question that we've been asked by one of our customers related to exterior home remodeling in hopes to empower you to make the right decisions when it comes to your house. And today is no different. Today, Aaron, I want to ask you the question, what are builder grade windows and what are my other options?
Okay.
That tends to be... you hear the word builder grade thrown out a lot, especially in new construction or 10, 15, 20 years down the road when things start to fail.
Yeah.
You hear a contractor say, oh, well, that was just builder grade. Let's start just by answering that question, and then we'll delve into some of the other options that I have when it comes to replacing my windows.
Okay. So the easiest way to explain builder grade windows is cheap, highly economical, inexpensive, quick, dirty, not a lot of options. Yeah. You're primarily going to be looking at a vinyl window. That's kind of the lion's share of the market. So just
all right,
cheap.
Something that's either manufactured in bulk or can be purchased in bulk, basically. Okay.
Correct. Yep.
All right. So I'm assuming builder grade windows are made by a number of manufacturers. That's just kind of the moniker given.
Yep.
Would you ever see builder grade printed on marketing material for that window, or is it just understood?
It's just kind of understood in the industry that they're builder grade windows. There's a whole bunch of different manufacturers. It's all basically just vinyl extrusion. They can all talk about the different technology that their particular brand of windows has, but at the end of the day, vinyl windows are just vinyl, raw vinyl, put through an extrusion machine to make the actual frames of the windows and the other kind of assembled parts. For the most part, they're all, 6 in one and half dozen the other. They're all the exact same.
Gotcha.
And the glass is all manufactured by, I think the largest manufacturer of glass is a glass company called Cardinal. It pretty much manufactures the glass for almost every manufacturer. So
gotcha. Okay. All right. Well, that's all we have for today's episode. That was a fun 4 minutes. Actually, before I get into asking you about what other options I might have when I'm building new construction or when I am doing replacement windows, I just want to talk a little bit about the role that windows play in the overall house. So could you talk just a little bit about like the aesthetics or energy efficiency, home value, maybe some common misconceptions that customers have with regards to windows?
Yeah. So one of the things I think we run into quite often is how we label windows. So we talk about new construction windows and we talk about replacement windows. So when you're having windows replaced, a lot of people say, I want to get replacement windows, but there's two different types. A replacement window could be just that, a window that replaces another window. But the technical term for us when we say replacement windows is a window that gets inserted into the existing window frame. So we typically don't really do a lot of replacement windows. We pretty much always use new construction, which means that we're going to tear out the entire existing window, the trim, the exterior, all the siding and everything comes off, and then the new window gets put in. This gives us the ability to kind of like make sure the window's 100% flashed properly. If your windows are older, it gives us the opportunity to upgrade your window kind of the current models, and just make sure we have everything nice and tight. So some people will call them insert windows. So replacement window is technically a window, you tear out the existing top and bottom sash or the existing glass, and then the replacement window or the insert window will set into the existing jamb. This is really, really common for older homes where you're talking about you don't really want to touch the existing siding. You might have really nice historic trim, or you don't want to take a chance on destroying that. It is the more economical option because it's quick, usually less degree for error, but it does come with like some other conditions that have to be met in order to kind of qualify the ability to put that window in. So, but as far as like, what's the purpose of your window? Obviously, the number one is going to be light. Windows will be the one thing that kind of let natural light into your home. A home that's kind of dark and dank can have some other, things that kind of go along with that. Dark homes obviously don't sell quite as easily, but it also can make you depressed. In the wintertime when you don't quite have the great sunlight and your home tends to be a little bit darker, you can be depressed in the wintertime.
Could also mean the difference between a space inside being considered a bedroom or not, right?
Yeah. You can definitely, the couple of requirements for making a bedroom. One of them is a window, an egress window, which means that a firefighter with complete gear, including an oxygen tank, has the ability to climb through that window. So anytime you talk about egress, it's the ability to kind of get in and escape a room.
You don't want any Winnie the Pooh situations happening.
No.
In the event of a fire.
Agreed.
Yeah.
So other than, natural lighting, it's also for ventilation. The average person doesn't open their windows quite as often as we used to. There's many people that will tell me outright, like, I haven't opened this window since I've lived here, and they've lived here for over 10 years. That happens quite often. And then, honestly, it's what else? I mean, I say natural light and ventilation are going to be your top two things. As far as aesthetics, I mean, windows can 100% be, an accent to a wall. So I would say that, you have tons of different options for those windows as far as making them kind of blend in with the wall or be the showcase of the wall. The more higher end you go, the more options you have. But yeah.
All right. So let's say I walk into our showroom and I'm talking to one of our exterior specialists, and I am in the market for replacing the windows that came with my house. Could you just share a little bit about some of the different style of windows? So what's the difference between double hung, casement, picture, bay?
Yeah. So a double hung window is going to be a window where it's kind of like your most common window. It's where the top and bottom windows operate independently. The other side of that is a single hung window, which means that the bottom will operate and the top sash is actually a permanent fixed panel.
Okay.
A picture window is pretty much exactly what it sounds like. You can look through it. Can't do anything else with it. It does not open. It doesn't have a screen with it. A casement window is a window that's usually full glass and it kind of cranks out. So it opens kind of on a side hinge. An awning window is essentially a casement window that's turned on its side. So an awning window is a casement window that basically cranks out from the top. So it's hinged on the top and it goes like that. So you see them in basements a lot. You see them in bathrooms, showers, and stuff like that, where you need kind of a certain style window without allowing rain and whatnot to come in. You have two different styles of windows that people get confused often. You have bay windows and bow windows. A bay window is like an octagon. So it's, kind of a line to a corner, straight line to a corner. And then a bow window is a series of windows that kind of go in an arch.
Okay.
Those are expensive. People fail to realize how expensive those windows are until they actually have to pay for one. Let's see. So we've got double hung, single hung, picture, casement, awning. Sometimes you'll hear people call windows hopper windows. A hopper window is for a basement. So if you've got like a basement with a couple of like small windows, they're usually 16 inches by 32 inches, somewhere in that range. Those are only for basements. Hopper windows are only for basements. And then outside of that, you can get into things like garden windows. Garden windows are kind of, again, a lot like bay and bow windows, where they're not quite as common, so they tend to be extremely expensive. But essentially, if you take a box and you put a box through your wall with a pitched roof on it, and it's glass on the top, glass on the front, glass on both sides. And it's exactly what you think it is. It is a garden box. It's specifically meant for, plants and allowing an additional amount of light in. You can get those where they have operating windows in them. Again, they are terribly expensive for what you get. So kind of not even remotely as common as they used to be. I think that pretty much that runs the gamut. I mean, you have like little other windows like octagon windows and stuff like that. But again, porthole windows and kind of niche windows.
But it's like we have a kind of a fake attic space above our garage, and there's a window that does absolutely nothing. Would that just be considered kind of a decorative casement window?
Yeah, pretty much. Sure. A lot of guys will, a lot of builders will actually spray paint the inside of that, which makes it look great because you can't look up and see the rafters. I've seen guys put like tar paper on the inside. Both of those options over time fail. So eventually you'll look up there and you'll be like, okay, I can see my attic space now. So,
all right. Yeah. Materials. I know I've lived in a house with vinyl. I've lived in a house with wood. What are some of the, just talk me through some of the most commonly used materials.
So vinyl and wood will be your top two. Vinyl being the number one. It's definitely the market leader because again, it's the cheapest. You can get some expensive vinyl windows. They do make some that have foam and things in the frame that actually make it a little bit more energy efficient. Wood typically is going to be, depending on what grade of wood, you have a lot of manufacturers that offer a wood window that's actually extruded with either vinyl or aluminum on the outside. Those windows typically are kind of a better energy efficient option. It allows you to actually have stain and things on the inside, which, some people like that look. And then from there, you have fiberglass. Fiberglass is a very small section of the market. They tend to be a little bit more expensive. Much smaller pool of manufacturers use fiberglass, and there's definitely varying degrees of quality there. So a true fiberglass is actually like fiberglass strands. A manufacturer like Marvin Windows has a fantastic fiberglass window. You'll pay pretty well for it. And then I know Andersen Windows. I'm not sure if they're still manufacturing, but at one point they had a brand called Fibrex, which was a fiberglass window in theory, but it also had like wood flour in it, so it wasn't a true like extruded fiberglass. You do have aluminum windows. They're not true aluminum. They still have some other like wood and things kind of involved with them, but that's pretty much your four. Every other material really doesn't really work, kind of fails. So vinyl, wood, aluminum, and fiberglass are going to be your four main categories.
I remember the house I grew up in had aluminum builder grade windows, and they were terrible. I can still hear the sound that they made. Like you had these two little latches at the bottom that you had to try to get up first, and then they would get caught on the lip, and then you'd hear this like, I can't make the sound really, but are there any good quality aluminum windows? Or is that kind of just gone away for the most part?
Yeah. So the majority of the aluminum windows that you saw back in the day, back when you were, a little tot, a lot of people had aluminum storm windows, and that's because you had a house that was, older wood windows. Normally you put storm windows on there. You had glass on it in the wintertime to kind of keep some of the wind out. And then you would replace that glass with screens in the summertime when you actually open your windows. So aluminum is a very small section of the market, and the aluminum windows that we have now are very, very high end.
Gotcha.
They're powder coated finishes in some degrees. And, again, they typically tend to go hand in hand with some sort of wood that is affixed with the aluminum. But there is really no, outside of like commercial windows, there's not a lot of fully aluminum window options out there for residential homes.
All right. So I want to talk about climate and geography for a second. So where we're based, kind of on the coast, does that play into what you recommend for for customers, like the material that they use?
Yeah. Like vinyl windows, if you live in a super, super cold environment, vinyl windows are just not the way to go because they literally have no thermal gap between them. So whatever it is on the outside is what it is on the inside.
Mm.
Kind of same way with wood. Wood does really, really well in some areas and not so well in other areas because, the amount of moisture that you may have, super high humidity, wood windows can swell. Fiberglass is one of those options, or again, if you can afford it, if you can pay for like a fiberglass Marvin window, they're amazing windows in pretty much any climate. Yeah, vinyl windows can expand pretty rapidly in super, super high heat. So, all those things you have to pay attention to. And vinyl expands and contracts just like PVC does. So any environment that's extreme cold or extreme heat is usually not great for vinyl. So wood has the most universal application amongst all the materials, especially when you try to bring cost into it. You can pretty much, for the most part, you can use wood windows in almost any climate and still have kind of a normal window budget.
Okay.
So,
yeah. Speaking of budget, so we've done this kind of thing that I'm going to ask you to do. We've done this with roofing and siding. Let's say I am your typical middle-class customer coming in. I'm not going to ask you for the cost because I know it's highly dependent,
greatly. Yeah,
especially the number of windows.
Yep.
Like there's a ton of variables, but I want to know if I'm coming in to our showroom talking to you. Let's say I have like run-of-the-mill, middle grade architectural asphalt shingles on my roof. I've got same thing, kind of like a Main Street CertainTeed siding on the side of my house, vinyl siding. What kind of window are you going to probably steer me toward so that I'm not going too low and I'm also not going too high?
So we pretty much always go in with vinyl windows as our main option.
I'm guessing they're not all created equal though, right?
They're not. No. You can have what we talked about previously. You can have like really kind of low end builder grade. And again, this is my personal opinion. I'm not giving anybody any sort of advice. I have nothing against any of the companies I'm about to name. But companies
there's a disclaimer at the end of this show. You're fine.
Companies like MI and MW have always typically been like the bottom of the barrel builder grade. You'll see them in almost any one of the national builders is pretty much using those. CertainTeed had their own brand of vinyl windows that got discontinued. They failed pretty rapidly. Andersen had a line called Silverline, and again, these were all like just bottom of the barrel cheap options. Let's see. You have Plygem has kind of a very inexpensive builder grade option that, again, some of the national and regional builders use those specifically. And then you can go you got brands like Provia, you got brands like Viwinco that offer you a kind of middle of the road builder grade option as like their lowest end. And then you really go up from there.
Okay.
Still a vinyl window, but you have crazy options as far as the energy efficiency of the window, the type of frame, the way that the frames are extruded and kind of the technology that goes into that. You can have a vinyl extruded frame that actually has decent energy efficiency to it in comparison to the one that's like a step down is it could be half of the efficiency ratings. And then same thing with the glass. You can have, double pane, triple pane. You can have argon filled. You can have nitrogen filled. You've got a whole bunch of other options, and then you start to get into like the coatings that actually helps like to reflect the UV rays and whatnot. So you can go into a home and bid 3 versions of a vinyl window from the same manufacturer like Provia, and give them 3 levels of energy efficiency and 3 wildly drastic price points. So again, I mean, most people, average house in this area, vinyl is going to be the way to go. Andersen Windows has always been kind of a market leader. They would usually be my number 2. And then if somebody had a more higher end home, I would usually steer them to like an Andersen, a higher end Andersen or a Marvin window. So
we've talked a lot about warranties in prior episodes and how really in a lot of ways the warranty can be as important as the material itself. Is
Yeah.
that true with windows as well?
Yeah, it's pretty much. I mean, that's pretty much true with almost everything. A lot of, especially with vinyl windows, a lot of vinyl window manufacturers, especially when they're brand new, don't last very long. A lot of companies have gotten bought out by larger conglomerates and just rebranded underneath their existing name. But yeah.
Would you say better to stick with one of those name brands as opposed to one of the more generics? I mean, you mentioned that a lot of the window companies use the same suppliers for their materials. Is it still best to stick with a name that you've heard of?
Well, typically when hiring any company, when buying a material, you do look at brand name. Sometimes you're going to pay a little extra for the brand, but you're paying for, the longevity. What's the track record of that company? Do they have a history of failing products? Do they have a history of buying brands and them going out of business, years later? So when it comes to warranty, a lot of times those window manufacturers, when they do go out of business and they get bought out, the warranty gets kind of bought into the newer company.
Okay.
But yeah, almost every company is going to have a nice little warranty. It just depends on exactly what that warranty is. Is it going to be for fading? Not normally. But it's most vinyl window manufacturers have a lifetime warranty on the sill failure. So if you ever have a vinyl window and the glass gets foggy, the glass is usually covered. Now, they're not going to pay anybody to come out and take the measurements. They're not going to pay anybody to come out and actually install it. But they will usually provide that glass at no cost. Sometimes they send you just the glass. Sometimes they send you the full sash. It kind of varies. But most of the manufacturers have a similar setup to that. So
real quick, speaking of warranty claims, what's the deal with that sticker that you'll see on the inside of most windows? Is it cool for me to tear that off and throw it away?
No. So at the top of pretty much every window that you buy, there'll be a little sticker, usually in the top jamb. Some people look at that and they're like, oh, my builder forgot to tear that off. Don't tear that off because that has all the information as far as the serial number for that window, usually has the manufacturer, has the exact size. Sometimes it will have the supplier that the actual window was purchased from. But, we just had one. I looked at one last night, a random builder, Bay something builders that's no longer in business, built a home in 2006, and they have a discontinued window. So the actual manufacturer of the window is no longer in business, but they were purchased by another vinyl window manufacturer that's still in business. But the only way for me to get the information for that window was from that tag at the top. So I've seen people, tear them off because they think they got left on there. I've seen people, spray them with Windex as they're cleaning their windows, and they just get to the point where you can't read them anymore. But if you call us as an exterior contractor out, and you've got some random window manufacturer, you don't know who the original builder was, you don't know when any of this stuff kind of was installed or where it came from, our options are very, very limited. And I will tell you that the cost point for us as a contractor to come swap out a few pieces of glass, or especially it's really easy to swap out a sash, paying us is probably half the cost, or way less than half the cost of hiring a glass company. So if you're to hire if you're to call out any of the major glass franchises, which I'm not going to name out of them because we all know who they are, but if you're to call them out, it's not unlikely to have anywhere between say a $650 to $1,200 bill to come out and swap the glass out in a window or two windows. Versus, you might pay us $150 to come out and swap out a sash, or, so yeah.
All right. Well, we're going to take a quick break. Stick around though, because when we come back, I'm going to take us on a trip to Acronym Corner, as I'm calling it. We're going to talk a little bit about energy efficiency, and then we'll talk a little bit about some of the installation and what you can expect as a homeowner when a contractor comes to replace your window. Perfect. But real quick, just like last week, the sponsor for this episode is us. It's Pro Exteriors. Go ahead, check this out. We'll be right back. And now a word from our sponsor.
Fall into savings with Pro Exteriors. Get ready to bundle up your home for the cooler months ahead. From September 1st to November 30th, enjoy free gutter guards with every qualifying roof or siding project. That's right, Say goodbye to clogged gutters and hello to hassle-free fall and winter. Don't miss out on this limited time offer. Call or click today at 302-664-1700 or askproexteriors.com to schedule your free estimate. Pro Exteriors, home of the pro difference. Fall into savings with Pro Exteriors. Promotion valid September 1st, 2024 through November 30th, 2024. Terms and conditions apply. Contact us for details.
Let's get back to the show. All right, as promised, Aaron and I have buckled up and we've headed downtown to Acronym Corner. We're going to talk about energy efficiency and window performance. You know, you can walk through any major box store and a lot of the marketing material that you will read about windows is really about the energy efficiency. And that kind of seems to be the way that window companies compete with one another. But they use a lot of acronyms and abbreviations that most homeowners don't understand. At least I don't understand all of them. So you touched on this a little bit, but just give me a general overview of the role windows play in the overall energy efficiency of a house.
They're huge. Yeah, the attic of your home is where you're going to lose the most amount of energy. Your windows and doors will be your second. Doors tend to be worse than windows. They get used a lot more, so obviously the weather stripping and that stuff fails much quicker on those. But yeah, you know, energy efficiency in windows is kind of a very broad spectrum of how efficient they can be. And then you definitely get to a point where you're spending money on things that will never actually play out in real life. So I mentioned earlier, you can do options like, double pane glass, which is kind of like the industry norm. You can go to triple pane glass, which does add like another layer of efficiency in the glass itself. Double pane glass, you know, you have options as far as how thick is the glass. Again, we talked about argon gas on the inside and nitrogen gas on the inside. A normal double pane, if it's, say, you're 72 on the inside of your home and it's 30 degrees on the outside, if you're to put your hand against that glass, you're going to feel that it's cold outside. And vice versa, if it's 72 inside and it's 100 outside, you're going to feel that the window's a little hot. Mm-hmm. When you start going into things like triple pane glass, you don't have that. You can walk up to the window and put your hand on it, and it's for the most part going to be the same temperature as the inside of your home, which does play a huge factor because you're not losing anything from the glass itself. You also don't have issues with condensation, which is a big thing when you have two kind of very extreme temperature differences. And then you can go into things of like foam-filled sashes where the entire exterior of the window is foam filled, so it definitely increases your R value and your U factor there. But yeah, it's a huge thing. You can pay for the most efficient windows out there, or you can just kind of go with your builder grade windows. But it's a huge
real quick,
variance.
R and U factors. Can you give me just in layman's terms what that is?
Yeah, so R value is something you hear about most of the time when it comes to like insulation in your home. Mm-hmm. U factor would be more so for glass specifically, and U factor is going to be essentially like how much heat is allowed to kind of come through the glass, the window.
Okay.
Yeah.
In doing prep for this episode, I came across SHGC.
Huh?
What is SHGC?
So SHGC is the solar heat gain coefficient. So it measures, how to say this? It measures it's very, very close to a U factor. So it's going to measure like the amount of heat that kind of comes through the glass. U factor can oftentimes be more so for like the frame itself, and then the SHGC is more so for the glass itself.
Okay, that makes sense.
But pretty much every window you're ever going to see, every window, every door, you're going to get these little like Energy Star rated labels that are on them, and it'll give you all that information. It'll give you the U factor. It'll give you the SHGC. Yeah, the higher the rating, usually the better the window as far as efficiency goes. The less it's going to cost you, kind of, with your heating and AC bills. So,
low E coatings, is that in addition to? So I'm assuming coating, that means it goes on the outside as opposed to the gas filled space
Correct.
in between panes.
Yep. Yeah, low E coatings is specifically meant to kind of deter UV ratings and from actually entering the home.
Almost like a window tint.
Yeah, very similar to a window tint. It's usually like a chemical coating that gets put on there. Anybody who lives in one of the kind of pocket communities that pops up around here, low E coatings is something they learn about really quickly. If you have vinyl siding, you'll notice that the low E coating happens to intensify the sunbeams from your neighbor's windows. And it's very, very normal. We get a lot of calls for this, where the beam from your neighbor's windows actually melts your siding.
Oh, goodness.
But that's what happens when you live 30 feet from the side of your house to your neighbor's house. So, but yeah, that specifically comes from that low E coating. It acts like a magnifying glass when the sun hits it. So,
all right. So, I'm in marketing. I understand that, as a company, we do our very best to everything that we market is bathed in truth. But you see sometimes where marketing is just meant to get somebody to buy the thing.
Yep.
But it sounds like in this instance, energy efficiency is a very real, should be a very real factor in my decision-making process.
Yep.
Now, what about window coverings? Is there a point where I could go overkill with the window itself if I plan on having like decent shades up anyhow? Or is that just kind of in conjunction with the window?
I think it kind of goes hand in hand. I think the window itself depends how energy efficient you want your home to be. If you live in a 50s or 60s house, the insulation in your walls is going to be, rather lacking in comparison to spending, $1,200 or $1,600 for some high end efficient window when the entire wall around it is not even anywhere close to as efficient as the window is. So, we try to be honest with people as far as like, they want, this, that, and the other. And I'll tell them outright, like, you're never going to see that money back. You're never going to see the benefits of this. You're never going to be like, oh, our electric bill is so much better because of these windows. Cause it's not reality. But yeah, so.
Okay. All right. Well, the way that I want to kind of start to land the plane is, as the homeowner, I've come in, I've talked to you, I've decided that, yeah, we're going to go ahead, we're going to replace all the windows in our house. Let's say an average house, 10 windows?
Probably a few more.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll say 15.
Let's say I decide it's time, like we're making a big investment, we're just going to do all the windows at once. Could you talk to me a little bit about what I can expect as a homeowner during the installation process? Because I understand this is not like siding or roofing where, other than having people on my property, it's not going to be super invasive to me as a homeowner. Can you explain what the differences might be?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely going to be much more invasive than roofing and siding. If you're replacing all of your windows, it's typically going to be a multi-day project. We're going to need access to both the interior and the exterior of your home. If you have windows that are, say, behind furniture or, behind nightstands and lamps, and you have, window drapes and blinds and all these things, we will take those things down, but we typically ask that you kind of move furniture and you take blinds and stuff down. So it can be rather invasive. You have windows in pretty much every room. So we're going to be in every single room of your house for the most part. It's going to be a little bit more of a pain in the summertime. Obviously, all of your AC is going out that window. You're going to have bugs and stuff that go in that window. And we try to limit the amount of time that it takes for us to actually remove the old window and put the new one in. But we'll put down tarps and whatnot on the floor to protect your floors. And, when we're all said and done, we'll kind of vacuum up everything. But, we're going to pop out usually a window or two at a time, put the new window in. We're going to spray foam everything to keep it nice and tight. And then once the spray foam cures, we'll come back and we'll do the trim. And then you're talking about doing all your final touches, your caulking and your painting and stuff like that. And then on the exterior, we ask that people take stuff off the walls. We are going to be banging on your walls to put the window in. We are going to be kind of flexing on your walls, taking the old windows out. So yeah, if you have birds, people have birds for pets, apparently. We're going to be opening windows, which allows them access out. So we're going to make sure they're caged. Same way with cats. Cats like to jump out windows. Never had it happen on any of my jobs, knock on wood. Same way with dogs. We're going to be opening things. If your animals try to get out, we can't necessarily be held 100% liable for that. So we'd prefer that you put your dogs, cats, pigs, husbands. Yeah. Mm-hmm. We also prefer that you don't sit in the same room with us as we go around the house and watch us work. Not that you can't, not that we're trying to hide anything from you, but it makes it very, very awkward. As well as, we kind of run into things to talk about by 10 a.m. Unless you want to talk about what we do every day, because we'll sit there and talk to you about what we do every day, all day long.
That'll also double the length of the installation time, most
100%. We do happen to have a couple of people here that are talkers. Mike Osborne, who happens to be our lead carpenter here. Anybody who talks to Mike knows that Mike likes to talk. If you want to take 10 minutes and talk about life, Mike will gladly give you 10 minutes of his time to talk about life. So,
yep.
Yeah.
You mentioned the trim and painting, because typically we are going to do new construction windows as a
Correct.
replacement. Is the painting and trim work, is that something that we include in our quotes?
Trim 99% of the time. Painting is usually a 50-50. Okay. And that really comes down to are you going to be painting your walls anytime soon? Do you need other stuff done on that wall? It really comes down to that. We as a company don't really enjoy painting. If we do all of your windows, we'll typically include the painting because I doubt you're going to paint every room in your house. But yeah, typically
so that would
don't
just be a discussion.
Painting. Yeah, it's a case by case basis.
Okay. All right. Anything? We've talked a lot about contracts in prior episodes.
Mm-hmm.
We've talked about how a very specific line by line descriptive estimate matters. Mm-hmm. What are some of the things that I need to be looking for on an estimate to make sure that I'm getting what my sales guy said I'm getting?
So with windows and doors, 100%, you should be getting a copy of the window and door order, not necessarily with the pricing and everything on it, but it will have a picture of what the window is going to look like when we're all said and done. We have had this happen on several occasions. Almost every contractor out there of a certain size is going to have a boneyard full of mismeasured or improper windows, the wrong color, the wrong grills, but you should be having a picture in front of you of what that window is going to look like. We want to make sure that if you want grills in there, we want to make sure that you got the grills in both the top and the bottom windows. Or if you only want the grills in the top window, we want to make sure that the photos of all the windows show that. The size and all that stuff, that's not really your thing. But take the spec sheet directly from the manufacturer and sign off on it to say yes, I agree that this is what everything should be when we're all said and done. 100%. Think that both for you as the consumer and on the contracting side, I prefer that a homeowner signs off on it, because I was like, well, look, the grills that we ordered are right there. You signed off on it. I personally had a window order last year. I think it was last year, where they wanted black windows, and the manufacturer had a color that was dark but not black, and I made the mistake of clicking the wrong thing, and we ordered about $11,000 or $12,000 worth of custom windows that came in very, very dark brown. So yeah, just cross your T's and dot your I's,
Anything that you've seen from other companies anything that they would try to hide in the quote potentially?
I wouldn't say hide. I would say the So the one thing that I see happening more and more is there's a couple of larger companies that you probably get mailers for them 2 or 3 times a week at a minimum, but they come in and they do what we call like a quick and like a down and dirty install. Their windows are going to be replacement windows. Their doors are going to be replacement doors. They don't take the exterior siding off. They're typically going to kind of try to do everything they can not to touch any of the siding or interior trim. And they leave things in a way that oftentimes can be problematic. So we've had 2 or 3 instances in just the last 6 months where we've been called out to patio doors that have been installed. And they put like metal capping around the door when they were done, but they literally just caulked it to the siding. And then vinyl siding, again, we always talk about it's not waterproof, it's water resistant. Water gets behind the vinyl siding and then gets behind their new metal capping and comes out the inside of the door. So that's why we personally always install new construction windows, because when we're all said and done, we know that it's flashed with the house wrap and the flashing tape the way it's supposed to be. We also find a lot of houses don't actually have house wrap on them, because for years, house wrap was not required. It wasn't a code. So if we take a window out, we see there's no house wrap, your wall's getting house wrapped. So
anything else that you have a burning desire to share about windows before we wrap things up?
No, I think that's pretty much it.
All right. Well, I'll walk us through a bit of a recap, and if anything pops up, you can hop in. So
okay.
When you hear the term builder grade, that typically means that is going to be the most economical, cheap option for that builder to get the job done.
Correct. And
to pass inspection. Windows play a huge part in the energy efficiency of our house. Next to doors would be the only other thing that would be, well, that and the attic space, right, is where a lot of, vinyl is predominant material used, but there's a bunch of other options out there, just like there is for every other home project.
Yep.
And then just go into the project as a homeowner understanding that this is going to be not only a financial investment, but it's going to be a bit of a disruption for a while. Hopefully the benefits far outweigh the short, small inconveniences.
Yeah.
Did I get all that right for the most part? All right, cool. All right, so that is all we have for today's episode of the You Ask the Pros Answer podcast. Hey, would you help us get the word out about our show? The best way you can do that is to give it a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts. You can follow Pro Exteriors on social media. You can share the episodes on your feed, or just simply tell a friend about it. That would be a huge help. It would help us get the word out and continue to grow our audience. But before we go as well, we want to hear from you. So we want this show to be a resource for you. What questions do you have about an upcoming home remodeling project? Would you please send us those questions to info@askproexteriors.com, and in the subject, simply put, You Ask. If you are facing an upcoming home project, we hope this episode has empowered you to tackle it with confidence. Remember, a little bit of research can go a long way. Until next time, happy homeowning.
The You Ask the Pros Answer podcast is produced in-house by the Pro Exteriors team. Pro Exteriors is the exterior contracting division of Empire Construction Group, LLC. This podcast is intended for informational purposes only. It should not be considered legal advice. For more answers to your questions, please subscribe to this channel and podcast so you'll never miss an episode. Do you have an upcoming home remodeling project? Find more answers to your questions at askproexteriors.com.